Good day, everybody. Psychedelic attorney Greg Lake here. Hope everybody's doing well. So today, this episode is going to be about this quote right here. Okay, and so let me just give you a little bit of context. These statements were made in open court by the government in a civil suit I litigated involving religious freedom and LSD. Okay, so let me be a little bit more specific. My client felt that the government was going to be prosecuting him for his LSD use, possession, consumption, and potentially distribution. Okay, and so what we did is we filed a civil lawsuit in civil court seeking to try to block that prosecution, potential prosecution. Okay, and so we were seeking a preliminary injunction under the Religious Freedom and Restoration Act. And amongst the other things we had to show, part of the RFRA, is we had to show that the government, or at least fight their case, that they have a compelling governmental interest in prosecuting our client for, again, possession, consumption, distribution of LSD, right? And so in that civil case is where this statement was made during a hearing. Okay, during a hearing in open court, the government made this admission. So we're going to unpack this at the end of this video. And let me say this. Unfortunately, in this instance, I'm not going to be able to give much more context about the case, and it's not because I don't want to, but unfortunately, through no fault of my own or my clients, our lives have been placed at risk in this situation. And so really further identifying potentially him and my relation to a specific case very well could put me and my family and a lot of other people's families in harm. So we're not going to do that. But anyways, we are going to dissect both the science and the expert testimony that I had procured in this specific instance that led to, I believe, and thank you to the government here for being intellectually honest, I think led to this admission in court. Okay, and then let me say this final disclaimer. This video is not intended to promote, advertise, make it look cool, or in any way encourage anyone to use any illicit substances. Always follow the law. That's on you. So let's hop right in. So what science, Greg, did you find, on top of expert testimony, we'll talk about that, to get this type of admission in court in this civil case? Okay, so really I think the most poignant, or the most pointed and effective study here is this one right here. Okay, it says LSD use in the United States, examining user demographic and their evolution from 2015 to 2019. This was in the Journal of Psychedelic Studies. These authors here, I don't know if they are necessarily government affiliated with the government. I apologize, I don't know that off the top of my head, but let's look at this next part here. This study was based off, okay, as we see here, the methods, based off National Survey on Drug Use and Health, NSDUH. Government data. It was based off government data. From 2015 to 2019, they say we investigated correlates of past year LSD use associated with changes over the study period. Okay, and so, I'll just let you know, and y'all feel free to go check the study out. It's pretty cool. And I'm not going to get into the weeds with it. And obviously, there's probably contra things in there that you could throw at me. It's fine. I'm really just highlighting the parts that I believe were very poignant or pointed in getting the government to make the admission. Okay. But anyways, yeah, so it's like government data was used to formulate the conclusions and all the data, or all the analysis in the study, might I say. So again, pretty pointed, right? We're going up against the government. We have these studies using government data. Now, this was 2015 to 2019. This case was not that long ago, so there was like a gap in years. But I can tell you, I represent to you that the research shows that during COVID, like starting 2020 or so, psychedelic use generally increased, right? People were having a really hard time, okay? And so just to the extent that, this sample that they had 2015, 2019, there probably would have been an even larger sample of people going into when we were litigating this case, but just wanted to throw that out there. Now, let's go to the first statistic, right? So I told you this was a religious freedom case. We were asserting religious freedom in court. And so this figure right here is probably the most interesting, right? And what is this showing? And I'll break it down. Obviously, you see religious services past 12 months. And the number says 1 to 25 or more. Now, the number on the left, the 68.1, shows all participants. So some participants had not used LSD in the last year. Some had, and we'll go over those. But this was total, right? So in total, around 68.1% of respondents said they were going to 1 to 25 or more religious services a year. That's pretty good, more than I would have expected, for sure. Now, that middle number, the 68, now those are the people who did not report last year LSD use, okay, at 68. Now, the one on the right, those are the people who reported LSD use in the past year, which you can see there's approximately a 1.8, 2-point increase of those people who are going to 1 to 25 or more religious services a year. Okay, so again, my argument here is that, well, it seems to me that 7 out of 10 people who use LSD in the last year are going to at least 1 to 25 or more religious services in a year. I mean, seems to me like there might be some tendency towards religious activity using LSD, just saying. And again, this is on top of, and I'm not going to pull this science out because it's so numerous to even warrant a citation, to be honest with you, but absolutely, LSD, when used in the proper set and setting context, right, can elicit and does at a very high rate elicit primary religious mystical experiences. Okay, so people, we saw the hippies back in the 60s. We thought, man, what are those crazy people doing? Well, a lot of them were actually having religious experiences, right? And as we know, a lot of them adopted Eastern religious theology, et cetera, right? So, even though when you're looking at that, like once you look at the research, for me anyways, when I look at the hippie movement in the 60s, 70s, like it made sense, like a lot of stuff that you see, right? And so, again, that's reflected in the research. Was I surprised to see this? I just didn't know that they had done a study to analyze this, but when I saw it, yeah, it pretty much made sense to me, right? But again, especially when we're talking about potentially religious distribution of LSD, when you're saying, well, 7 out of 10 people who are apparently using it over the last year seem to be like they're turning towards religion, at least somewhat, right? So again, just throwing that out there, make of it what you will. But let's go ahead to the next figure, because this really for sure factors into the compelling governmental interest, right? And what we see here, as you'll see, I've boxed it in. It says past year LSD users' lack of association with previous arrest history, hospitalization, and psychological distress suggests that LSD does not significantly contribute to crime or psychiatric problems in the United States, right? Which, again, if you look at the actual research with LSD, y'all, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I know the government and other interested parties have tried to demonize LSD over the years, and I know the government through MK Ultra definitely did a lot of damage with LSD to people, both willingly and unwillingly. And so, again, but when used really just in its kind of native environment, the naturalistic use, right, just people going about their business using it, it really does not create many societal problems at all. And as a matter of fact, when you look at the research on it, man, it might have a lot of potential society benefits or upside to it, right? So again, this right here, it didn't surprise me, right? But it was just a really well-couched conclusion for what I was arguing, right? And again, I'll switch over to this now. Let's look at one more thing from this study real quick, strengths and limitations. And so I'm just going to read the strengths here. It says the primary strength of this study is its use of data from the government and from multiple administrations of a large, rigorously conducted survey employing a nationally representative survey sample, right? So very robust data from the government made this study here possible, made this report, this journal entry here. And again, I'll say this, the Journal of Psychedelic Studies is obviously a very prestigious journal for these types of articles. And so again, peer-reviewed, all that kind of stuff, very good. Now, in all fairness, I also had a health and safety, basically a psychedelic researcher, a top-notch psychedelic researcher who also filed an affidavit citing to this evidence here and also other studies related to religious experience. Generally, if it's done correctly, it's safe. Obviously not everything's perfectly safe, but safe enough to where their opinion was the government really has no significant interest in prosecuting my client. Okay, and so that's how these things kind of work. Obviously, my expert had their own research, not they had done necessarily, but had it in pocket. They were very well qualified to opine on it. And then this was just something I came across doing my own. I do this all the time, almost every day, and send it to them, and fit it right in. And so back to the quote. Okay, back to the quote. Quote unquote, turning to the merits, I want to be clear that we would not be here if plaintiff had merely consumed LSD as a sacrament or otherwise. Okay, so let's think about this real quick, right? Under the Controlled Substances Act, it clearly makes it illegal to possess and or consume LSD outside of a closely monitored research setting, okay? And when we just talk about Controlled Substances Act, it also makes religious use illegal, although there are potential situations where people could be exempt under the religious laws from the Controlled Substances Act for LSD. And obviously that's what we were arguing in the civil case, right? But, there's this thing called equal protection, right? So it's kind of like if the government's admitting that they don't have an interest, to go after my client for possessing, consuming LSD, whether as a religious sacrament or otherwise, aka pretty much any reason, well, then equal protection would say that goes to pretty much, it goes to everybody else. Not pretty much, it goes to everybody else, right? So that's very interesting, right? That the government in open court made a statement like so contrary to otherwise, I think, the plain meaning of a pretty well-known law. So again, make of it as you will. I guess I'll say this in closing about this, just in my experience, both as a litigator and expert in this space. The government's just having to face that reality. Now, the courts haven't completely caught up to the science and the research, unfortunately, right? And the government is having to slowly make concessions in this regard, right? And it's just the reality of the situation. And again, this channel is going to be dedicated to going through all the research and stuff in this regard. But I think as far as LSD is concerned and what we talk about the public's interest in health safety, the government's interest in health and safety, the foundations upon which LSD and other psychedelics and really other substances, to be quite honest with you, being placed on Schedule 1, especially when we consider, just so y'all know, there's some people in this world that should know this that definitely don't, but I'm just going to tell you now, fentanyl is Schedule 2, methamphetamine, Schedule 2, right? LSD, this Schedule 1. Okay, so there's just a lot of incongruency, and we'll cover a lot of this on this channel, a lot of incongruency reflected in the Controlled Substances Act. We'll get into some speculation as to why. I think I know why. But obviously leave that up to y'all ultimately, right? But again, we'll be exploring this much deeper on this channel. But again, I just wanted to come share this with y'all. I hope y'all enjoy this. This is kind of my second story to the DMT one. I'll put a thing at the end of this video for it if you want to go check that out, where I served as an expert on a DMT criminal case in a very conservative jurisdiction and was able to get an acquittal. That's also, I feel, a pretty interesting story. Got pretty good feedback. But anyways, if you made it this far, I love you. God bless you. If you have the bandwidth time, please subscribe. If you have any more bandwidth, like, comment. And generally, comment. Let me know what you think about this. What do you think about these numbers? Do y'all want to see more? What y'all want? Let me know what kind of content y'all continue to want to see, and I'll bring it to you. Anyways, much love. Y'all have a great rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend. Peace.